Okay, coming up we have Alison Miller, Daniel Harris, Alan Quinlan and Anthony Moyles. Take it away, Shane.
Yeah, well, you said it already. We're going to start with women's rugby, and I'm not going to use the word abysmal performance, but abysmal result maybe, I think probably sums it up quite well. 24-7 defeat for Ireland to Italy in Parma, and it looks like a wooden spoon showdown with Scotland in a couple of weeks' time. But first, it's going to be a round 4 game against England next Saturday, April 22nd. And you'd be little bit concerned, I think, about that game. The match of the weekend, Ireland early on, I think you can agree, would dominate possession, dominated territory, but they just couldn't finish. The line-out was very poor, woeful, you might say. And Greg McWilliams after the match used the word clinical a number of times, and the lack of clinical finishing from this Irish team, they just couldn't seem to get over the whitewash at any stage with any conviction. Put passes together. There doesn't seem to be a winger in the team that can really take players on either. He made 3 changes to the lineup for the previous game, but there's so much inexperience, and this point was made on television and in plenty of punditry around the game afterwards. Clearly this Irish team don't have as many caps as maybe some of the other teams in the Six Nations this year, and yet
that's a choice though. We should point out that they're picking players who have fewer caps than picking players who have more caps, who could have added some experience, and they could have chosen not to have the inexperienced team be lambs to the slaughter in the way. So that's not that's a strategy that they have decided on, and that's their choice and that's their responsibility.
Even the try yesterday was a penalty try. They've got 15 points in total in the Six Nations so far, which is really poor. Greg McWilliams speaking afterwards, he was like, I can't fault the effort of the players. They've been outstanding. We look at what we have to do to get better. This was the theme of his post-matches as well. We need to continuously get better, and that's what we ask of our players. I'm very proud of them coming away from home losing. I know how they feel. He referenced some positives from yesterday as well. Nicola Friday speaking up in the dressing room. Sam Monaghan and Lauren Delaney he pinpointed and named as well as players that had decent performances. And he said he had to say very little in the match beforehand or at half-time. But maybe more needs to be said now because the performances just haven't been good enough.
Totally. And the fact that, like you say, Shane, the try was a penalty try, and like how Ireland didn't score in the stoppage time in the first half when they were on the cusp of the Italian try line and then dropped it themselves, and that summed it all up. And like even just like very basic statistics, like last year Ireland won this game 28-3. They've won 19 of their previous 22 encounters with Italy, and to be beaten so comprehensively, like Alyssa Dinka had a field day out wide and could have scored more than her 2 tries. And just the fact that there's no real cohesive plan in attack, or there's no off-the-cuff plan, there's no ingenuity, spark of individualism and creativity out wide or even in the centres, and just the constant change and even half-back partnerships, there's just real no cohesion. The only thing you could say about this Irish team is that they have great spirit and work rate, but like how sick are we of saying that about Irish sporting teams in a global scale over the years? We're going way beyond that, and unfortunately you look at the men's Irish team, you look at the women's Irish team, and you can't help but compare where they are, and it's just like, we were saying in the pre-show meeting, and like, Kathleen McNamee herself was pointing out, like, there's been a lot of positivity since this result, and really we should be way more honest with ourselves and not even patronise ourselves to the fact that like this is nowhere near good enough, and it goes to show that we're miles away from where we should be.
The point is as well, wasn't the ambition beforehand? We previewed the Women's Six Nations, and I think Greg himself had said that the ambition was to finish third. They're so far off being the team just behind England and France that it's just like you worry that the game against England next weekend is going to be seismic in terms of result. Ireland are not going to win that game. Let's not kid ourselves here.
Oh, the spread could be 70-80 points.
100%. Yeah. I'm concerned that they could lose by over 100 points. You'd like to think there aren't enough minutes in the match for that to happen, but performance-wise, things just need to improve. They can't carry the ball. It's just individual errors at different points, and I don't want to be too harsh because I know that there's a lot of young girls in that team, and there were positives that Greg McWilliams rightly mentioned, like Delaney and Sam Monaghan, and Derlin Nicavard was brilliant as well in parts. So look, there are bright shoots there.
There aren't bright shoots. They're not bright shoots.
A lot of the bright shoots
they're not bright shoots though. That's just like I think we shouldn't fall into the trap of saying there's nothing. There's actually nothing for them to hang their hat on after a performance like this.
Well, the bright shoots are in the sevens, aren't they? There are bright shoots. They're maybe not in the squad for one reason or another. And we know there's plenty happening off the pitch in Irish women's rugby that needs to be addressed as well. And we have addressed it in the show plenty of times. But it just leaves you wondering where and when things are going to improve.
Well, you can't separate the two, the off pitch and on pitch. It's
one is a result of the other.
This is what's happening. They're bright. Like Aoife Dalton was very good. Sam Monaghan was good, and like I said, the team spirit was good. But like it's nowhere near good enough. And the worry, like you say, Sinead, the spread against England could be absolutely terrifying. Like England absolutely annihilated Wales.
I can't find it at the moment. I'm sure the bookmakers are desperately trying to
31-5. You know what I mean? So if you want to do basic logic, like you want to look away this weekend, and there's like, what can they get from this weekend? It's probably improved displays in the back line, and just a bit like some sort of cohesion in attack would be promising to see. But really, you're looking for anything inside 50 points, and that's depressing saying that.
Italy weren't even great. Like, it's not like we're looking at an Italy team here like, oh, they're really drastically improving. Italy weren't fantastic. You know, this wasn't a team that just blew us away. Ireland only conceded 6 penalties, I think, across the 80 minutes, which is ordinarily, if you'd said that before the game, you're thinking, well, Ireland are going to win this match. Discipline is clearly going to be good. But didn't matter about discipline, really. And the discipline at the line-out, I don't know what the hell is going on in practice in terms of line-outs, but...
well, the Italy line-out wasn't great either, but it was just Ireland's worse.
Yeah. Set pieces generally... set pieces generally were okay, but definitely not line-outs.
All right.
You'd be concerned.
This is bad. It's getting worse. There's no sign of it improving, and it's going to be a long, slow, hard slog back to respectability as opposed to a winning culture.
Do you understand Greg McWilliams' positivity afterwards? Do you understand what he was trying to do?
I think that he has no choice. He can't come out and go, this is abysmal, and
he's the only person who can't.
It's going to get worse, you know? Like, it's a very difficult situation because, like, the article came out last week and I didn't hear any significant rebuttal from... so he came out and was like, oh, this is all historic, but I didn't hear anybody else from the IRFU coming out. I haven't seen the chief executive come out, and there hasn't been like an open press conference where David Nucifora sits alongside the new chief executive and everybody comes out and says, these are our plans, this is what we're going to do. It's an open forum, you can ask us anything and we will deal with whatever it is. Like, look at what happened in the Welsh Rugby Union. Like, they just want to be very careful that the situation doesn't get out of hand, that the difficulties that are being expressed are openly addressed and honestly and transparently addressed, as opposed to saying, oh, this isn't true, these suggestions that there is sexism rife within Irish rugby in the wider terms, that they begin to address that, because otherwise you can't, like, the results are a manifestation of a decade and a half long attitude and treatment of the game. That's the reality of the situation. And until they actually come out and say, fundamentally we have changed as an organisation and we are still on a transformation journey, we're not finished, we have loads and loads to go, then you're not going to see any uptick in performances, and individual green shoots or whatever of single individual performances are just going to, they'll be swamped by the culture.
Well, it feels like an Irish women's soccer Liberty Hall moment that has not yet been addressed. That is...
Well, that should have been the
ignored.
letter to the Irish Times at that time. Was it the Irish Times, or was it just a general public letter? Was it however it leaked, right? That should have been the moment where they were like, okay, this is an opportunity for us. But instead, it's been, I don't know. And we've invested loads of money, and we've got individuals whose job it is to fix this, as opposed to actually culturally, we've got this entirely wrong. And also, the Sevens thing is like, that's a choice. Their strategy was to send the Sevens team off to qualify, and they haven't qualified yet. And as a result, what the 15s performances, which are on terrestrial TV and being watched by everybody, they're getting swamped. And you're like, okay, well, you made the decision to prioritise the 7, so let's wait and see. Anyway, look, we're coming back to this in about 15 minutes' time, so let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on, and we're moving on to Newcastle and Spurs. Couple of teams that let themselves down a little bit at the weekend. I know we're going to touch on Chelsea as well, Colm, I think. But the Newcastle game is probably a chance for us to big up Aston Villa as well, Ger, don't worry. Brilliant performance by Villa. Newcastle, you'd be concerned. I'm just looking at the table here. So you have Newcastle and United still driving seat, you'd have to say, for those top 4 places. But Tottenham losing as well just would concern you. Ollie Watkins with the 2 goals for Villa at the weekend, Jacob Ramsey with the other. Villa have won 5 straight Premier League games for the first time since when?
2009?
1998. which is a bit insane.
Who's manager? John Gregory?
Could well have been one of those lads. There's a lot of Villa managers you might
I
forget
thought they had
about.
great ones under Martin O'Neill.
It's
I think they've 5 wins in a row though. That's it's proper leaving up the table territory.
well true.
Villa in the first half were as good as I've seen them. Like the atmosphere at 12:30 on Saturday morning was absolutely sensational, and they completely controlled the game. In the second half, at the start of the second half, Newcastle came out and started to cause a bit of trouble. Martinez had to make a few saves, and it's even kind of slightly better then that at half time I was like, this is a transformational moment for Villa, where whatever happens, the control that they've showed, the creativity they've showed, the quality of football they've showed, they're not going to go back. And then you're a little bit worried about, maybe, but then they just come out and swat them aside.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely sensational. Like, it wasn't just Watkins, it was the whole team. It was players who've been dropped at various stages. Even Emery has dropped some of the players, and now they're back in the team, and they're like John McGinn's arse, like one of the great sights in world football, and it's in full glorious flow in that second half in particular. Did a goal disallowed for like a hair's breadth of an offside as well.
Yeah.
And that would have been a hat-trick for Watkins if that one had stood, and he'd scored the two after that as well. But it was an astonishing performance. And it's an astonishing performance by Unai Emery. And this is the one dark cloud on the Aston Villa horizon here, is that Unai Emery is so bloody good that Chelsea must be looking at him going, well, hang on a second. He's third in the table since the start of November.
Yeah.
What? Why is he third in the table? What's he doing? Let's just get him. Now, I don't think Unai Emery would be... if you were counselling him, would you go to the basket case that is one of those other clubs?
Not a chance.
You got to stick with Villa now, because the since Unai Emery arrived, start of the season table, they're just behind Manchester City and just behind Arsenal.
Yeah, 12 wins out of the 18 games he's been in charge in the Premier League. Like, I was at Emery's first game in charge at Villa Park, and that was the win over Manchester United, and you're thinking straight away, well, could be new manager bounce, but fair play, good result. Turns out it was not a new manager bounce, because
They're 3 points behind Spurs.
it's amazing, isn't it?
Well, like, they're legitimately... I actually think Brighton are probably more legitimately in the conversation for finishing top four at the moment. And that's why the Evan Ferguson injury is actually more concerning for them than just the semi-final of the FA Cup. But like, Villa have managed to shoot themselves. If this was any other team, if Liverpool had gone on the run, right, that Villa are on at the minute, everybody like, ooh, they're still a dark horse for Champions League football here.
Yeah.
But like, they're actually a dark horse for Champions League football here, because they just annihilated Newcastle.
If they keep winning, and if Ollie Watkins keeps scoring, what is he? 11 of his 14 goals this season have come in the last 12 games. He's just a man on fire. Unai Emery turned down the Saudis. He rejected approaches from Newcastle.
He was their first choice.
So this could have worked out a hell of a lot differently.
Imagine how Eddie Howe felt mid-afternoon on Saturday. I've just lost to the manager who was first choice for the job I'm in.
Yeah,
You want to have a lot of self-belief.
essentially. So what he's done at Aston Villa is just quite remarkable. And their rise continues. I know we said we're talking about Newcastle here because they're the ones in the red this morning, but
We just had no room for Villa in the green, but
Exactly.
Villa are 100% in the green. I do think Newcastle can recover from this, but it is one of those bits where actually the big result of the weekend from top four perspective, I don't think Villa are going to make top four, just for the record, right? But they have suddenly shot themselves into consideration for that fourth spot. I think now Manchester United are going to be grand. And that's why their win yesterday, and that's why that handball is actually a massive, massive decision that's going to, ultimately make Man United loads of money.
Yeah.
It's good for the Premier League to have a good, strong Man United, isn't it?
yeah.
What an important global brand they are, and that's why they always get those results.
The other team in the red is Tottenham. The dramatic 3-2 defeat against Bournemouth. Dango Ouattara with a beautiful goal, a little bit of a Federico Macheda vibe to the goal. A player that hasn't been used too much, and it was a similar kind of finish, cut inside and curl it in with the right hand foot into the bottom right corner. Bournemouth now, when you look at the table, they are 33 points with 31 games played, so they're 6 points ahead of Forest in the relegation zone, and same amount of games played as Forest as well. So those points on the board could be massive, and all of a sudden Gary O'Neill and what he's doing at Bournemouth, you have to be impressed. But how could anyone be a Tottenham fan and still be happy in their regular day-to-day lives? I just don't know. They just let you down constantly. When Heung-min Son opens the scoring, you're thinking, well, this is going to be a good day for Tottenham. It just wasn't a good day for Tottenham, and the performance wasn't great. Richarlison's lack of goals is really starting to come to the fore now as well. You'd just be concerned, and you look at the table and that top four battle. You wouldn't back Tottenham to finish top 4 at the moment, certainly form-wise.
How are they still as high as 5th?
I know.
How were Aston Villa 3 points behind them? It just goes to show what was happening under Stephen Gerrard at Villa, because Unai Emery's doing such an unbelievable job. By the way, does English football owe Emery an apology after his treatment when he was Arsenal boss? He got a lot of criticism at that time. He's really showing him now.
I was just reading back over the record. He did okay, but then had a really bad transfer window, and the team stuttered at the start of the next season. So that one bit that you'd be concerned about is just making sure that they sign the right players, because there's not going to be a huge margin for error for Villa to click into that top 6 proper next season. But very exciting. Brighton, if they win their game in hand, will be on 52 points, which would be 4 behind Newcastle. Can they catch them?
No, I don't think so. But Newcastle Spurs this weekend.
So, why could Brighton not catch Newcastle?
I think Newcastle will, as you say already, I think they'll react to that. I think that was a proper off day against Villa, and they'll make amends. And I just don't think Brighton are going to catch them up. Having said that, wouldn't it be the biggest shock in the world if they did? I mean, they were stupendous against Chelsea. Again, another brilliant performance with Brighton. But I think Newcastle have a lot of muscle memory from how they recovered this season. Look at the League Cup final. They were insipid in that game, and they weren't great going into that match, and they've been very good since then. Don't think they're going to let it slip. In terms of finishing above Brighton, I mean, I'm still like, geez, like, who's going to get that 4th place? Like you said, Manchester United, I think, are safe now, just looking at the table here in front of me. And then you are looking at, like, Liverpool are probably too far behind now. They're 5 points behind Brighton in 8th. Brentford have slipped away completely. So then you're looking at Brighton, Villa, Tottenham, Newcastle.
Liverpool have to win their 2 games in hand to be level with Villa.
Yeah, I mean, like, from experience alone, you'd say Liverpool should get a 4th, but
how many seasons do we get a title race, a top 4 battle, and a relegation battle?
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant. The Premier League this season's been excellent.
We
really
are so lucky this season to have that. I think what summed up the Spurs' performance the weekend was Davinson Sanchez's performance. He was on the pitch for 23 minutes, replaced then by Danjuma. Hugo Lloris spoke about it afterwards. He was booed by the fans. I've never seen this in my career. Lloris says, I feel really bad for Davinson. He's a teammate, he's a friend, he's been fighting for the club for many, many years now. The story is sad for the club, the fans and the players. So when you see players like Davinson Sanchez getting booed by the fans, you know things aren't right at Tottenham. And Christian Stellini said during the week, we have to approach every single one of our last 8 games or whatever it was in the Premier League like a final. And then they go into the match against Bournemouth and they lose 3-2. So concerns. But Newcastle and Spurs, I think, deservedly
I think they should replace Stellini till the end of the season. I think they should get someone in.
Company is the favourite.
No, I think between now and the summer, like, for the last 7 games.
Yeah.
I think they should get someone. I don't think they're going to get 4th under Stellini. I think they should be working now to get
Daniel Levy is
someone
working on that at this moment. Like,
I don't know, but he was announced for the rest of the season, but like the Newcastle game's approaching, they have the rest of this week to sort that out. I think they'd be mad not to look for an alternative to help Stellini even.
Make a change. Do you want to move on to Amber? We're still talking football.
Go ahead.
We've got a bit of Arsenal action.
Sorry, quick one. Any news on Evan, lads? Asks Chris Cal. In no specific news. An ankle injury, multiple weeks is what De Zerbi is saying. Fairly similar to the language that they used after his previous ankle injury. So
2 to 3 seems to be the suggestion.
Yeah, it's a massive shame. FA Cup semi-final.
Nothing official. And so, you know, you would hope that there's some possibility.
But how good was he? Hits the crossbar with a brilliant effort. Ferguson nearly scores when he gets injured, and he was excellent. They were 1-0 down when he went off. Welbeck scored. His replacement scored within 3 minutes of coming on the pitch, but Ferguson was tearing Chelsea apart. And Match of the Day was noting how much they were rating this young man, Evan Ferguson.
Yeah.
And like we were saying last few weeks, like is he going beyond the Irish analysis of, oh my God, we have a Robbie Keane replacement? And it seems to be like the rest of the football world is starting to notice that this teenager seriously has a future.
Yeah, Brighton's scouting is obviously better than everybody else at the minute, because they've got 2 teenagers at the moment.
Oh my God, that goal.
If they could keep them together for
the
next couple of years,
and he hit the post,
you'd be like, all right, things are going to be pretty good for these.
Yeah. Ferguson should go nowhere. De Zerbi should go nowhere. Keep this project alive. It's only getting going. Don't go anywhere.
Turns out scouting works. Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the, honestly, goal of the season contenders in Seesaul's finish, because if you look at it, he takes one touch and the ball's going away from him to the right, so that's a really tough shot to pull off, because you can easily scuff that near a post, but the trajectory of it, it was beautiful.
One for the cameras.
Soared up.
Yeah. We'll go to the Amber. We'll go to Arsenal, because another 2-goal lead that just dissipated quite quickly against West Ham at the weekend for Mikel Arteta and his team. He says afterwards, we have to remember we are still top of the league with everything in our own hands. Martin Odegaard kind of echoing those sentiments as well after the game. Some people already writing off Arsenal are saying this is a sign of mental fragility. This is a sign that they're not ready for a battle for the title, and this is a sign that they're not experienced in terms of winning a title, whereas Man City are. But I wouldn't be that concerned just yet. I know they had the 2-goal lead. The Saka penalty was fairly brutal.
That's the turning point of the season.
The penalty.
Oh my God, that was for 3-1 minutes later. It was 2-2.
Yeah, things can happen quite quickly in football.
Manchester City are going to win the league. They're going to win the league.
Yeah, there's no way they should be in amber. It's just that we didn't have enough reds, right?
Oh, it's extremely dark amber. It's to the point where you're looking from a distance. It's like, that's red.
Lads, hold on a minute here.
No, what are you talking about, Shane? Come on.
Like they still have to play Man City.
Exactly.
Which gives them an opportunity.
That's the worry. That's the worry.
Exactly.
That's a Wednesday week.
They've got Southampton at home on Friday night.
Yeah.
What a game to bounce back.
Yeah, I agree with
that.
that.
The perfect fixture to bounce back.
Yeah.
So get the win there and go into the Man City game with a little bit of renewed vigour and confidence. Surely, I know it's at the Etihad. I understand that, but Arsenal are still in the box seat. Look at the table. Like Arsenal, 4 points clear of City. City have the game less played.
Exactly.
It is going to come down to that.
Look at the goal difference. City are far superior. There's no way that Jack Grealish isn't talking to Roy Keane the last day of the season and reflecting on another title win. Like, they've blown it. I thought Arsenal did brilliantly at Anfield. I thought the 2-2 was fair enough because they could have lost that game with Konate. If Konate's chest was a bit stronger, Liverpool would have won that game 3-2. But yesterday, in title terms, is unforgivable.
Arsenal are only focused on the Premier League, lads. City have the Champions League. City have the FA Cup. It will matter.
That's worse. They have no distractions, Arsenal. They're out of all the cups.
But
they lost the Sport. They should never have lost the Sporting. And now all they have to think about is, oh my God, we've lost 4 points from our last 2 games. Like, that's all they're thinking about.
What if Erling Haaland pulls a hamstring or does his Achilles in a Champions League?
Julian Alvarez.
Doesn't matter.
They have so much going for them. Grealish is in the form of his life. Riyad Mahrez isn't even starting and he's excellent. There's not a world where Arsenal win the title.
City have clicked. It's game over.
10 wins in a row.
Should have been in the red here, as I said.
Yeah.
This is red, all red.
It's not all doom and gloom, Arsenal fans. Don't listen to these.
It is. I'm sorry. They've got Champions League football to look forward to next season. They're going to be able to sign whoever they want, and it's a big deal. It's a step up the ladder, and there's still enough crisis at the other clubs to make you think at the start of the season they will be Manchester City's nearest title challengers next year. But it's game over.
The question is, has it been a brilliant season for Arsenal? They would have obviously taken second at the start of the season, but the way it's gone, it's a disappointing season. That's the debate that we're having on Sky Sports yesterday. Roy Keane, Gary Neville, Jimmy Floyd, Hasselbank. Neville in the camp of good season for Arsenal. The 2 lads saying they've ruined it.
Let me paint you a very quick picture. So Arsenal, as I said, 4 points ahead with a game extra played. Arsenal beat Southampton this Friday. They go 7 points clear of City with 2 games extra played. They go into next week, midweek, with 2 games extra played, but a 7-point advantage. Mm-hmm. Get a draw at the Etihad. Just get a draw, right? Then you're 7 points clear. Still. Relax, Arsenal fans. Just get a draw at the Etihad. You can get a draw. Even if you go 2-0 up, you'll end up drawing 2-2 because that's what Arsenal do.
I go as far as to say, even if Arsenal don't lose at the Etihad, that City will still win the league.
If Arsenal,
I think Arsenal will slip up elsewhere.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
It's in their heads now.
Yeah, fair. I'll take your point, but I still think the title race is on. I'm trying to be optimistic for Arsenal fans out there.
The other thing, I saw somebody at 2-0 going, ooh, this is a real good opportunity for Arsenal to close that gap in terms of the scoring difference. It's like, that tweet didn't age very well, did it?
If teams are thinking about scoring difference, then they're in a bad place. You got to be points on the board, lads. Forget about the goals. Just win the game.
I know we have to move on, but Arsenal were brilliant at the start of the game, just like they were against Liverpool. So they have all the talent in the world. It's just the mental side. It's probably too early for them to win the league with this squad. They could do it again next year. Second isn't a bad result.
Well, everybody said the same thing about Spurs when they pushed Leicester, and that never happened. You know, you've got to take the window of opportunity when it arrives. And also, there was a flakiness around Man City at the start of the season when they were trying to work out how to make Erling Haaland work. That might not be there next season. City might start next season with 15 wins, and like the season will be over by Christmas, and we'll be like, that was a kind of weird situation, wasn't it? Where actually there was an opportunity for somebody else to win the league who isn't Man City.
Yeah, true. I have more faith in this Arsenal side, though. I do.
Than Spurs.
Yeah, I do. I think they have a brilliant squad. No, Spurs had an excellent squad.
Next season they're going to have Champions League football week in, week out.
But they'll improve their squad, I think.
They'll have to improve it massively.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go to the green. And a woman who has been so close, and one of those mentions that are we going to her first?
Yeah.
Rhasidat Adeleke. Deservedly so. The Tala 20-year-old, what a weekend for her. just a day after breaking her Irish 200 metre record, what does she go and do? She becomes the first Irish woman to run below 50 seconds for the 400 metres. She's only taken up the 400 metres very, very recently in comparison to a lot of runners out there that she's competing against in these races. And the fact that she was able to run so fast. So this was at the Tom Jones Memorial Invitational in Florida. Not that Tom Jones, I don't think. She was running for the University of Texas. She runs 49.90, finishing second behind Britton Wilson. That was an American runner who beat Adeleke back in March over a similar distance. It took 0.43 off her previous best for the distance, which was also the Irish record. That was back in February. So she's not just breaking her records, she's obliterating records. These might sound like marginal shades of seconds, but they are quite significant, these distances. She said in March she's still unsure what her limits are in 400 metre racing. But if you compare what she's done, it just is quite incredible. And you're starting to get a little bit of excited about Olympic Games and her age profile as well. I know Michael Johnson was tweeting about her quite recently, we mentioned on the show, and giving her little tips in terms of keeping her arms straight and using her arms more while running.
That was really interesting.
Yeah,
that
fascinating.
feedback. If she starts using her arms properly, she's going to be even better again. And it seems like every single weekend, like you said, she's somehow not making these Gillette Labs Performance Rankings, and she's just creating record after record. And we were in our own chat this weekend, and our own Dara put it into the chat like, we have to put Adeleke in now, because it was another record. And when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, here we go again. I thought it was an old article. That's how frequently she's breaking her own records.
That 400 metre time, by the way, had she been in Tokyo in the Olympics, she would have been 6th with that time and 4th place in last year's Worlds. Now, clearly runners are getting faster, but it kind of just highlights where she is. So she would have been in an Olympic final, 400 metres, and she's only taken up the distance. So that just sums up how fast she is.
Really weird decision not to bring her to the last major championships. Remember the time when they were like, oh no, I remember that? Like, what was going on? Somebody needs to be... that decision needs to be revisited, but also shows the benefit maybe of the US collegiate system, which kind of had maybe fallen off as a life ambition for a lot of Irish athletes, saying, oh, you can stay at home and you can really be world class, but whatever the quality of coaching she's getting is obviously helping.
Those facilities, I've been to those athletic facilities in the University of Texas in Austin, and I once did a couple of laps around it. I was staying in Austin by myself doing a documentary on space. I said, I'm going to go at night time and do a few laps. What I didn't realise, I was just thinking, there's going to be a load of like general joggers out. What I didn't realise was there were actual national and international athletes sprinting past me on this unbelievable spongy track. And I was like, what am I doing here? They must have looked at this pasty Irish guy going, nah, this is ridiculous. So she has facilities there. She's got talent. She's got people behind her. She's only 20 years of age. And if she keeps smashing records like this, I don't think we can possibly yet fathom what her ceiling is.
Well, yeah, objectively, we're looking at another world-class Irish athlete. It's a lot to get excited by.
Hype train like Evan Ferguson, we're going to...
Absolutely.
Choo-choo.
Choo-choo it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's choo-choo onto the other green, because the small matter of Monaghan and Tyrone in Omagh yesterday at Healy Park. I was there myself in the main stand. Quite excited, let me tell you.
Sorry, can I ask you, because I need to set this up for you.
Yeah.
When Ryan O'Toole picks the ball up, 101, Niall Morgan from a tight angle, what's your first thought?
My immediate first thought was, this is very similar to the position in which he got the ball against Mayo and buried the ball, but this is a totally different scenario. All I'm thinking was, and I was screaming it internally, fist the ball over the bar. We've had a good second half. We'll take them to extra time and we'll beat them in extra time. Please, Ryan, fist the ball over the bar. And then he kicks it through the legs of Niall Morgan, and I lost my mind.
And he said that afterwards too, that the first thing in his mind was to fist the ball over the bar, and he thought, all right, I'm 1-1 with Morgan, why not?
You know what I would say about this? So you lads know I'm an fairly optimistic person. I generally tend to be optimistic naturally. I don't have to force it. Monaghan people generally are optimistic. I think as a folk, it's because we're at the border there. We're quite entrepreneurial. We're quite ingenious when it comes to little ways of making a few extra quid, possibly.
We're quite ingenious.
Yeah, 100%. But Monaghan people are eternal optimists. But look at the way Monaghan, five years out of the last 9, staying up on the final day of the league. It's all over yesterday when McCurry puts that last point over and gives Tyrone the 1 point advantage. There are 30 seconds left on the clock, and then the goal wins the game. They don't even bother with the extra time. There's a quote in Breaking Bad, lads, where Walter White is talking about his cancer and going to get his treatment, and he's driving to the hospital with his family, and he just wanted every traffic light to turn red, but he kept hitting the green lights, and he was like, for once in my life, would the traffic lights just not go red? Yesterday I was driving home in traffic with all the other Monaghan fans through the Ballygawley roundabout, through Auchnacloy, through Garvahi, and I was absolutely loving the traffic. All the Monaghan fans were just coasting through life in the lovely evening sun, heading home to Monaghan, through Tyrone, all the little villages and towns of Tyrone, and the traffic just didn't bother me. So,
are you beeping the horn as you go?
A little bit. The little finger up, yeah, 100%. It was
Which
just
finger up? Sorry, which finger up?
just the little wag, you know, the country wag. When you have the hand on the wheel, you do that. How are you, lad? Tyrone 118, Monaghan 217. What an advertisement for Ulster football. Who said Ulster football is crap and dour?
5 points down at half time as well.
It was impressive.
You might want to do a shout out for Conor McManus, will you?
Oh,
Here we go.
I mean, that free kick at the end to give Monaghan the advantage once more was remarkable. He sends Beggan back where he came from. Beggan had missed a couple of kicks. I thought Beggan's distribution second half from kickouts was brilliant, all bar 1 or 2 kicks maybe. But McManus just to have the cojones to take that out of the hands and knock it over. Even Kilpatrick, the Tyrone midfielder, who was kind of saying things in his ear as he was about to kick it, McManus literally just goes over to him and says something back to him after he's kicked it over the bar, and Kilpatrick, all he can do is smirk. Carl O'Connell's running game was outrageously good. Stevie O'Hanlon, I mentioned him last week as a person who has come back into the Monaghan squad. I think I was asked what Monaghan's chances were against Tyrone, and I pinpointed Stevie O'Hanlon as someone, Micheál Bannigan as well, who scored a brilliant point in the second half. Conor McCarthy was largely quiet for portions of the game, especially in the first half, and he pops up with 2 brilliant scores in the second half. McManus described Rory Beggan as the quarterback at the end of the match, and you see him bombing forward with the ball in hand, reaching the Monaghan 45-metre line, and that pass into Carl Gallagher diagonally for the first Monaghan goal. Gallagher lays it off to Stevie O'Hanlon, and O'Hanlon does what he does. He looks one way, shimmies, beats Conor Myler, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it was every aspect of that was
Incredible
absolutely
thing.
class, because it was not an easy thing. Does what he does, against Tyrone.
Yeah, with everything on the line, Monaghan were 2 points down at that point. So to score the goal, all of a sudden Monaghan are thinking, well, we have an advantage now. Let's change the approach to the game. And they did have a change of approach. They said, let's play on our own terms in the second half. Let's play in the front foot.
I do think that we probably, because we're living through the Conor McManus era, and there's been other great forwards of his generation, but like he's entering a new pantheon of conversations. Like, just to be able to do this at this stage of his career is remarkable.
Yeah.
Like, at this stage of their careers, everybody else was slowing down, and becoming bit part players or changing their roles, going out to play centre forward and like be the quarterback of the team instead of like, no, I'm going to kick the 9 points against Tyrone.
Yeah, 9 from 9 at 35 years of age.
It's ridiculous.
When I mentioned his name, I was just thinking Monaghan's Mount Rushmore and how solidified he is as possibly the top spot. Tony Corey said afterwards, he's Monaghan's greatest ever player.
It wasn't even and you'd be like, of course he is. Now you're kind of starting to have conversation. Actually, you know what? To do what he did for Monaghan all those years, like, where does he begin to rank in all time great forwards?
He's in conversations. He has to be. And
we can get back to it for sure.
The point was made. That's his 60th championship start in a row. That's outrageous. Since he made his debut in 07, it's been well publicised that he never played county minor, didn't make minor, was a skinny wing half back before they decided, this lad can actually shoot. Let's put him up in the full forward line and the half forward line at first, but it just worked. He's outrageously good, and that second half performance, the Monaghan Derry semi-final in Ulster is going to be a cracker. It's going to be a totally different game, but looking forward to it.
Very good.
Derry are delighted by this, by the way. They're like, yeah, you guys, off you go. You enjoy that crack now. We were like amazing, by the way. We fixed all the problems that we had the previous time. The last time you saw us against Dublin, for example, we now have forwards and a style of playing in the forward. So we shall see.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. 3-17, I think Derry put up. So yeah, Monaghan in the red. Sorry, not in the red. Monaghan will never be in the red this year, lads. It's going to be a long summer. Monaghan in the green. That's the performance rankings.